Hello, good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
Well, it's a beautiful morning. I am Kayode Okikulu.
And I'm Ayomakide. Welcome.
Well, yes, indeed. We're going to go ahead and take a look at what the front pages have got. We've got Sonny Igboanugu here with us. He's a former deputy editor of Daily Independent newspapers. Thank you for coming on this morning. Well, let's start off with Vanguard newspaper. They're still talking about the minimum wage. FG directs payment by December 31st. Of course, this is something that we all saw how the conversation went back and forth. But look at the riders now. Takes effect from April 18, 2019, when the minimum wage law was signed. Wages Commission, Ngige, to send consequential adjustments to states, NYSC members to enjoy new minimum wage, says Minister. OK's 1.7 billion naira for airports, communication equipment. But then, first, the back and forth about this minimum wage, haven't seen them come to an agreement. Well, and with this directive, should people go home and sleep?
Well, for me, what I would say is let us hope.
Hope?
This is the final bus stop for the, negotiation. Whether there's going to be new negotiations, we don't know. Because if you remember, prior to, on the heels of the 2019 election, it was announced that the minimum wage had been agreed upon for 30,000 naira minimum wage. It was very clear that that was the agreement, and the Senate and the National Assembly passed it as a bill. So what brought about the renegotiation is what we don't know. And that is why I'm saying, let us hope that people will not start kicking again, and then we'll get back to...
But then what they agreed on was minimum wage,
yes,
which says nobody should be paid below this amount.
Good.
But that bill, that agreement did not exactly state what people earning above that amount should earn, which is why they tried to go back for the consequential.
Your understanding?
Well, apparently that was in the tiny details, but people did not notice then. So, I mean, Labour says they will always come back every once in a while to come negotiate.
Exactly.
So I think for now, it's fair to say this is the final bus stop for now.
I said, let's hope so. Let's just hope so. Because you have not taken into consideration what the states will say. This is just a federal government.
Let me give you an idea.
Yes.
For instance, now there's a rider here as well, or maybe a standalone. 10 states owing workers arrears of salaries or the benefits.
Exactly.
So with this one, but that doesn't mean that they are not bound by the agreement of this minimum
powerful, very states could, sign in and pay. But what about those who are owing as at the moment? And then you are going to ask them to pay more. What are they going to do?
Well, and then insecurity. Gunmen kidnap Federal High Court judge, demand 50 million naira, which you also find on the front page here this morning. Raises more concerns now. The last time out, it was a police officer in Mufti, and now a Federal High Court judge, and they're demanding 50 million naira. So we did ask the other time, does it appear or come across, or do people get the impression that we're doing the best we can to curb or tackle this menace headlong?
Well, first of all, we should stop living in denial. Those who are supposed to, take charge and completely eliminate this, they should stop living in denial.
Why do you say they're living in denial?
When I say that they should stop living in denial is when you say that you have, for instance, eradicated insecurity in the country.
Or
when you say that Boko Haram has been completely eliminated, when you make that type of pronouncement.
I don't think they said completely.
Okay, but if you give that type of idea, that you have completely, there was a word they used that I cannot remember now, but that is the impression they are giving. Now, there is no place in the world where there is no crime. There's no place in the world. But this is the height of it.
Which one?
This one, when kidnappers now go for, there are some key people in the society who are somewhat untouchables. Like a judge, a federal high court judge should be in that category of untouchable. Like the assistant commissioner of police should be in that category of untouchables, where you cannot take crime to. It's like saying that you go and kidnap a state government. That is the height of it. It is not only the act itself, but the impression the act conveys. That is the problem.
Well,
The High Court, a federal High Court judge, for you to go and kidnap him, conveys more damning meaning than the crime itself. And that is worrisome. Very worrisome indeed.
We also have this story here. Fulani herdsmen kick against anti-open grazing bill in Oyo, which we'll find just above this nameplate here. But I think there were comments and reports where they said, look, it wasn't targeted specifically against them. But now, if they're kicking against this anti-open grazing bill, how is this going to eventually play out?
You see, but then states it does not lie in their mouth to start kicking when states make their own laws, because it is within their rights to do so, to make laws that will be for the good and betterment of their own people. If the herdsmen constitute a nuisance or security concern, it is left for the states to make laws to protect their people.
But the thing about this is, it's a bill.
Yeah.
So people can raise the objections or
Well,
the
of course,
impressions
it's within their right
at this stage.
Yes.
So, but if it becomes law, then it's a different
Like
case
it is
entirely.
already in other states like Ekiti. You do not, take your cows in the streets. You have to confine them to, and that brings back the debate of where do you raise your cows? Is it found in anywhere else in the world where cows march in the street as much a street like a Broad Street or Abuja? You find the cows moving in the streets. Is it possible anywhere in the world?
Let's take a look at the back page. Vanguard Sports. Chelsea learning to play without Hazard, says Lampard. But importantly was Osimhen. He also featured against, I think, Lille and Valencia. Then you also had, is it Valencia or Villarreal? I can't remember which one now. But then he had some Nigerian internationals who were, who played last night as well. Peter Olayinka played as well. Quite a number of them. But the thing about this is, look, how do you see us leveraging on all of these talents spread across the world, particularly getting Champions League experience to improve the national team?
But there's no other way to go. If we have such players, because this time around, we do not rely on our local players any longer. You have this, football has become almost like a global village where your international players play in very big teams all over the world. You have to look for them. So when we have people like Osimhen, who scores almost in every match he plays, it is very important that we continue to harness such people to come and help us in our own football.
But aren't you also concerned, just a moment, that we're not, taking from that pool of local players?
No, but they're the ones that travel abroad.
No, but they are local players.
Yes, they are local players. They get to the stage and they put them and they travel abroad. They are still Nigerian citizens. So if they travel abroad and hone their skills abroad, you go there and bring them to come and play for you.
What is wrong with developing them in such a way that we don't even need to pull from outside?
We don't have a developed league. Can you have, when last did you go to the National Stadium? When we are growing up in this Lagos State, we used to move to the National Stadium as children, or maybe as youth. We didn't have money. You come very early in the morning, stay on the line. Somebody will come that we need that your space, gives you a little amount. You go back and queue from the beginning. And you get to a certain point, another person. That was how we entered the stadium. Somebody will come and pay you. You take complete money until when those traders from Dumota will come around because match starts at 4:45. You understand? By 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, those traders from will come and pay you big money, so that you go and queue again. That was how all the matches you have full spectators. All the seats are taken. Some people even climb the pole, the massive to get into the stadium. That tells you the interest. But now, do we still have such interest in our local football?
I guess we'll leave it at that for thoughts then. That's Vanguard this morning.
Well, let's see what's on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. So we talked about states being able to pay the minimum wage, and this is what we have on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. There you go. Only 18 states can meet monthly recurrent expenditure. And that statement is credited to budget. So let's give you the riders. Lagos, most fiscally sustainable state. Kogi list. So we have the top and the list. Lagos, Kano, Oyo, highest VAT beneficiaries. Yobe, Borno rank high in fiscal sustainability. Rivers, Delta, Bayelsa run high recurrent bills. That's on page 10. So with this statement, only 18 states can meet monthly recurrent expenditure. What do you think that will do to the negotiations for the new minimum wage?
That is why I said, ab initio ante. Let us hope that this will be the final. Because many states are not viable. And that is why it goes back to the issue, to the discussion about restructuring. Until states become viable, until states can on their own raise enough money to meet their own financial needs, then there's a problem.
Part of the argument has always been that all states really are viable. It's just, it does, you know, there needs to be some conversation between the federal government and those individual states, you know, to be able to get some things done. Why is it taking so long for those states individually to go have that kind of conversation with the
No, what type of conversation are you having when the law already specifies what you can harness and what you cannot harness?
Which is why
something in the ground in your state, you cannot go and dig it up without it takes, you know, rejigging, complete rejigging of the constitution for you to achieve that. It is not something you just go and negotiate on the sit on the table and negotiate with the president. He doesn't have that power.
All right, so there's this sad one also on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, and this, you know, between Lagos and Ogun State. 3 killed, many injured in Otedola Bridge, Ogun Road crashes. That's on page 31. And, you know, there's been a series of road crashes, especially on that axis. And we understand that there's construction going on. But then what is of more concern is the state of, you know, emergency response and what have you on our roads. And some people say, I mean, if we had it perhaps better, maybe not record some of these casualties we record. And don't forget that particular tanker fire, I believe it was in Anambra State recently, and people saying that we could have gotten better response to it. So, you know, where does that leave us? How much more work do we have to do?
As I was coming this morning, there's a similar gridlock, except that nobody died or something terrible didn't happen. Just as I was coming, the whole road is blocked. So, but if you do not ab initio take into cognizance some of the structures a road is supposed to have, then you run into this type of problem. Because elsewhere, you have where people who are on bicycles can ride, people on foot can walk, and then it's demarcated in such a way that everybody knows the lane to take. But if you leave it as a free for all, things like this are bound to happen.
You know, but what about?
For instance, if there's an emergency, how does the ambulance?
Yeah, but you know,
how does it come in?
How about us?
Yes,
the road user, the way we drive.
Of course,
we need to improve that. We're very bad at some of those things that we do.
How do you get your license in the first place? If you have never driven a car in the first place, you can get a driving license.
If
a
you've
valid
never-
Nigerian driving license.
If you've never
You have
driven-
never driven a car for once in your life.
You know
But
somebody
you can
who,
get it, you can get it, sit back,
you
pay
know
money and
somebody
get
who has.
No, but it's possible. If you then
But you know, we only speak about what we see.
see,
and
but
what we
if,
know.
abroad, before you get a license, it's like taking a degree exam. There must be all manner of tests that you'll be given.
But we have that same process here.
You have it, but you don't enforce it.
Whose fault is that? It's our fault.
Yeah.
That's what Chamberlain is saying.
Exactly.
We are the ones
No,
responsible.
but then how? There must be an enforcer. There must be somebody.
But after, yes, there has to be an enforcer. But do we all have to wait for an enforcer?
Why can't we just comply?
Look, let me tell you.
But there are basic
Let
things
me
that we
tell-
should do,
Let
which
me
we're not
tell you,
doing.
until we bring our society to that level, which we have not, there must be an enforcer, because if you start, you go to London today, and there is scarcity of food, then you know that everybody. You saw what happened in U.S. Congress. Maybe we'll get to that. You see what happened in the U.S. Congress.
All right, let's
to tell you that human beings are almost the same everywhere when you put them in a certain condition.
Okay, the Guardian also leads with a minimum wage story. Government orders payment of new minimum wage from 18,000. Beg your pardon. Government orders payment of new minimum wage from April 18. That's 18,000 naira. Directs Commission to clear arrears latest December 31. New pay personnel costs to take 4.88 trillion naira in 2020. Lawan Gbajabiamila decried disruption of budget cycle. That's the lead story. But then there's this one of a little bit of concern. Security alert prompts evacuation at American consulate in Lagos. There are two riders. Strange white powder may be anthrax, other toxic agent. That's a quote. Find out who said it. We're verifying substance, says embassy staff member. And of course, this happened during a visit to the place. That should give you a little bit of concern, especially where teenagers, a group of teenagers, had an education program at the embassy at the time.
Well, just as you said, it's a matter for serious concern. They must investigate and know what it's all about. Yes.
That's already happening. Okay, the back page of the Guardian newspaper. AFN boss Gusau convenes board meeting amid probe. Technical director, secretary grilled at investigative panel, along with other stories. Let's leave it there for the Guardian newspaper. I believe Malpe has some papers in Abuja. Malpe.
Yes, indeed. Let's quickly look at New Telegraph for you. You see the new minimum wage. Federal government sets December deadline for full payment of arrears. In Gige, consequential adjustments take effect April 18. And NYC members to earn 30,000 naira monthly allowance. It's definitely a good time to be a Youth Corps member. Do you agree, sir?
Important for people like it's a very good one for NYSC members, because it's very important that people who leave their stations and go to unknown places are well catered for financially and otherwise. So I think it's a very good development.
Worrying. I know that you already looked at those other ones. Gunmen abduct federal high court judge, which you said the meaning is even stronger than the act itself. Looking at the bottom here, IG PS's feud halts recruitment of 10,000 constables. Court stops police exercise pending determination of suit. What do you make of this? That they've been trying to hire policemen for a while now, and this is what is happening between the police itself, the Nigeria Police Force, and the Police Service Commission.
Well, the question you should ask is, where else does this happen in the world? Where else does it happen? It tells you more stories about our way of life in Nigeria. You see, the PSC, everybody knows the function, and everybody knows the function of the Nigerian police. Why is it impossible for them to, play on their own lane? Why must vested interests be the ones that will come and, throw spanner in the ways of progress in this country. It's a very disturbing situation and very appalling, quite appalling indeed. And well, since they are in court, let us see what the court will say about how to determine how to resolve the matter, because it doesn't happen elsewhere in the world. This type of thing does not happen. Very, 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 very appalling development indeed.
Okay, you also see just on top of the nameplate there, FIRS, Nigeria loses $15 billion to tax evasion annually. A finance minister says, we have a revenue problem, not debt crisis. That is also there as well. While the Justice Ministry is seeking 2.5% commission on recovered assets, can they justify that?
Justify the what?
They're seeking on recovered assets, 2.5%.
Well, as long as the money, whatever they are taking, is used for the good of the society, I don't think my people will say the head of the goat is still in the bag of the goat. It is neither here nor there. If they need it for the good, to develop themselves and for better services, I think I don't see anything. I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't see anything wrong with it at all.
Let's take a look at PNB Putin sign. Oh, beg your pardon. PNB Putin seal deal on refineries at Jalkota Steel to start new infrastructure projects, expand trade and investment. Renew Nigeria-Russia military technical agreement is also there. Page 4 is where it is. The picture there buttresses the point, even though I'm noting that you only see men at the table there, the president and his men, President Vladimir Putin and his own men as well. But that's the lead headline there. PNB Putin steel deal on refineries at Jalkota Steel. Are you hopeful that perhaps indeed steel companies will be able to finally take off? I mean, there's been a lot of talk around our Jalkota Steel. How hopeful are you that our steel companies will eventually take off and give us the steel that we need?
Well, I'm very hopeful because if you looked at you see, my hope is conditional to some extent, because you look at the equipment. This project started almost 50 years ago, 40-something years ago. What will be the level and of the state of the equipment that are installed in that project? You know, things continue to change. You continue to have new inventions. You continue to have new equipment. Are you going to use equipment that was installed 40 years ago for a digital age steel company? That is the area of concern I have. But if you look at it, if they can complete it, steel is still very important development in terms of any economy. And I also believe that President Buhari's trip to Russia, looking towards Russia, is a very good development for Nigeria as a country, because if you took into consideration what happened as seemingly looking at the U.S. is shutting its doors on Nigeria following the last trip.
Are they?
Yes.
How?
If you recalled what happened after the last trip, the president undertook the state visit to the U.S. and you read the news that leaked about President Trump's comments on the president. Nobody knows. If
We're buying Tucano jets.
If that were true, then it is important that we have to shift our attention towards a country that...
I don't know the veracity of that, because we have placed orders for some military equipment. We pay good money for that.
Yeah, yes.
So they didn't shut the doors against our money. So why would they shut the doors against?
Well, from the look of things, there was no official denial of that statement. And it is very, it's not a good thing to say.
Okay, then Sonny Igboanugu, former deputy editor of Daily Independence. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, back in a moment. Stay with us.